This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Part of the problem is that they have all new leadership and they're fighting like cats and dogs.
There's nothing more important than controlling the sea lanes.
We protect my yard, we protect your yard, we even protect Chuck Schumer's backyard.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Don't rush me. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. That was President Trump's response to a reporter question in the Oval Office this afternoon on how much longer he's willing to wait out Iran on peace talks amid a shaky ceasefire.
Part of the problem is that they have all new leadership and they're fighting like cats and dogs for who's going to control, because we've created a real mess for them. But they've created a mess for the world over the last 47 years. They've killed a lot of our people.
Trump has told the U.S. Navy to go ahead and attack any Iranian fast boats they see laying mines or attacking shipping in the Strait of Hormuz as a Navy blockade of Iranian ports continues, designed to cripple Iran's economy. Former Navy Secretary Kenneth Brathwaite.
There's nothing more important than controlling the sea lanes. It's where all the commerce flows. Of course, we're seeing that in the Straits with over 20% of the world's oil supply being cut off. Armies win wars, but navies prevent them.
Iran fired back today at reports of a Tehran power struggle, saying, quote, "We are all revolutionaries." While much of Washington has been focused on the war with Iran, the battle over DHS funding rages on in Congress. The Senate has passed a new DHS funding bill, though its fate in the House anything but certain. New York Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer still strongly opposed.
Adding $140 billion to an agency that nobody, to two groups, Border Patrol and ICE, that nobody respects in this country.
DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen has a reminder for Schumer and other Democrats.
22 agencies that their main job every single day, we get up and we protect the homeland. We protect my yard, we protect your yard, we even protect Chuck Schumer's backyard.
The new Republican-led plan passed in the Senate would fund DHS for the remainder of President Trump's term. A potential bailout of Spirit Airlines being blasted on multiple sides. Republican Senator Ted Cruz slamming that notion in a post on X, writing, "This is an absolutely terrible idea." Democrat Elizabeth Warren agrees with him.
I think bailouts are a bad idea. We need to stop the business of consolidation. People then rake all the profits off the top, leave a shell of a company behind, and expect the U.S. taxpayers to come in and prop them up. That's got to stop, and it's got to stop now.
And the CEO of American Airlines also chimed in on CNBC.
You take a look at the times in which the government has helped with the industry. This is 9/11, and it was, the pandemic. I don't know if conditions like this warrant it, but I can say that we're not interested.
Bloomberg is reporting that under that potential deal, the administration could wind up owning as much as 90% of Spirit Airlines, which has filed for bankruptcy twice within the past 2 years. The Department of Justice cracking down on an alleged foreign fraud scam. United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, announcing charges against 2 Chinese nationals. They're accused of managing a cryptocurrency investment fraud compound in Burma and trying to open another one in Cambodia. A little bit of health news for you next. Wake up, sleepy seniors. Excessive napping has been linked to a higher mortality risk among seniors. Sleep researchers at Mass General Brigham tracked more than 1,300 older adults for up to 19 years and found that each additional hour of daytime napping was associated with a 13% higher risk of death. They defined daytime napping as getting shut-eye between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m., but nodding off in the morning was especially risky, producing a 30% higher mortality rate. A big deal in show business. This company is going to merge with this company. Now, if you don't recognize the tunes, the first was Warner Brothers, the second one Paramount. Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders have approved the merger with Paramount Skydance. Paramount is set to acquire the company in whole, including cable networks, a film studio, and streaming service. The deal for $31 a share. It comes after a bidding war with Netflix. The merger, though, still needs regulatory approval. The First Lady says her foster care initiative is expanding in the U.S.
As parents and leaders, it is our ethical obligation mission to ensure our kids develop emotionally and physically within a safe environment.
Speaking at the 113th Annual First Ladies Luncheon at the Washington, D.C. Hilton, Melania Trump said the program Fostering Our Future is expanding to include more states. She says the college scholarship program for kids aging out of the foster care system is also going to expand. The program was launched to help families at risk of losing their kids to foster care, families with foster kids, and to help raise funds for the U.S. foster care system. Still to come here on the 5 o'clock report, a recap of our top regional stories for you, as well as highlights from today's Faith Under Fire. Now checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. A school shooting plot in Oneida County, New York, was the focus of a crowded community meeting last night at the Clinton Middle School. At that hearing, community members heard from the parent who called 911 and averted a potential catastrophe, Oneida County Sheriff Robert Mashel.
If you see something, say something. You can say it officially, you can say it unofficially, you can say it anonymously. I don't care how you say it, but we can't be everywhere, and we need the community to work with us. Everybody involved in this from A to Z was extremely cooperative, and I'm grateful and I'm very, very thankful to them for that.
Police say 3 teenagers were planning to gun down students in the Clinton Middle School cafeteria last Friday. All 3 have been expelled from the school. A 15-year-old boy in Ontario County, New York, is in critical condition right now after a gasoline explosion left him severely burned. Sheriff's deputies there say it happened in Stanley when the teen reportedly poured gasoline on a fire outside when it exploded back at him, suffering burns to the majority of his body. Mercy Flight Central took the boy to Strong Memorial Hospital. His mother also suffered burns trying to put out those flames. To Pennsylvania now, where the state Senate has advanced legislation to keep men out of women's sports. It requires high schools and colleges to label sports teams as male, female, or co-ed. Biological boys would be banned from joining girls' teams. Republican State Senator Judy Ward.
This is about biological sex, not gender identity. Biological male athletes have significant strength and endurance advantages over biological female athletes, creating unfair competition and safety risks.
The legislation, though, faces an uncertain future in the democratically controlled State House. Governor Josh Shapiro has already hinted he won't sign it, even if it does make it to his desk. Pennsylvania politicians also taking aim at a growing deer problem and what they say is a shortage of places to hunt. We get more on that story from Family Life's Bob Price.
Yeah, Mark, some in Harrisburg argue hunters do not have enough access to land. They're pushing a measure encouraging landowners, farmers, and municipalities to open up more acreage to deer hunting. Supporters say expanding access could help control the state's growing deer population. An overabundance of deer has led to increased vehicle crashes, property damage, and rising tick-borne illnesses, including Lyme disease, which has now been reported in all 67 Pennsylvania counties. Bob Price, Family Life News.
Thanks, Bob. Well, Steelers fans no doubt already feel this way, but right now the center of the NFL universe is definitely Pittsburgh, which is hosting the 2026 NFL Draft beginning tonight. There are fans from every NFL city in the Steel City for the festivities, including a very devoted Buffalo Bills fan who isn't from Buffalo or even the U.S.
I was elected as International Fan of the Year by the Buffalo Bills.
That's Ontario, Canada's Darryl Russell, dressed head to toe in Bills red, white, and blue amid a sea of Steelers black and gold. He tells WPXI he's loving downtown Pittsburgh.
Beautiful city. Beautiful. It's really nice. I really enjoy it.
He gets to announce one of the Bills' draft picks. And, of course, Pittsburghers are just loving having the draft on their home turf.
It looks really good, and I like what they did with Market Square. They did a good job.
The draft is once in a lifetime right here in Pittsburgh.
A Steelers' longtime rival, the Raiders, are on the clock first. The Jets pick 2nd and 16th. Giants 5th and 10th. Browns 6th and 24. Steelers 21st. Eagles 23rd. And the Bills 26th. Round 1 of the NFL Draft kicks off tonight at 8. You're listening to the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me today, Alliance Defending Freedom's Chelsea Yeoman. We're talking mail order abortion. Let's start with the FDA versus the state of Louisiana. It's actually a big deal for us, too, in New York and Pennsylvania because it has to do with mail-order abortions, abortifacients that are shipped through the mail like mifepristone. Can you tell me about the case?
We represent an incredible woman, Rosalie Markizik, and her boyfriend forced her to take abortion drugs. He ordered them online, which thanks to the FDA's approval where there's no longer in-person dispensing required. These drugs are readily available on websites online. I worked for a pregnancy resource center who had women showing up with drugs from eBay. They're very pervasive, and thanks to the FDA's mail order policy, he was able to get a hold of those drugs, and he forced his girlfriend to take them, and she lost the child, and it's a really horrific situation.
This is a case about states' rights. Can an entire state say no to abortion by mail, especially if it's coming from large states that produce these drugs like New York that have completely different laws on abortion? The people in Louisiana voted for their laws. They want protection of life. And it's a big case because it's against the FDA. It's not an individual. It's not one company. It's the national board that regulates the sale of these drugs in all 50 states.
Yes, you're correct. There's so many complications with Louisiana's right to stop these drugs from flowing. We've got over 600 drugs a month flowing into Louisiana. That's 600 children every single month who should see their first birthday and take their first breaths who are not because of these out-of-state illicit drug traffickers from New York and Colorado and many other states. Louisiana is having a hard time stopping them because of shield laws. The blue states have passed shield laws that say you can't even so much as file a case against those doctors in their courts of law. And what that means is Louisiana needs to take it to the top, to the federal government and say, FDA, control the distribution of these drugs that they unlawfully approved. They have never tested the safety of these drugs being done without in-person physician oversight or care from a doctor. And what we're seeing are ramifications like our case where our client was forced to take these drugs, parents force their daughters to take these drugs, or they end up with mass complications. 1 in 20 women will end up in the ER with complications like sepsis and hemorrhage or needing surgical intervention. So it's very serious, and it starts at the top with the FDA.
Where is the case at right now?
Yeah, so we filed this case, and the U.S. District Judge in Louisiana, he said, well, the FDA has currently committed to reviewing whether the drug is safe or is not, but the FDA is going to be reviewing their safety protocols, and they have about 6 months now, the judge said, to get that report finalized. They're going to hold the case. He stayed the case there at the district court level until the FDA's findings are rendered. However, we at AAF are not going to wait, and we know that women and children's lives are in the balance, and in those 6 months, the damage that could be wrought is astronomical and important. 1 child and 1 woman injured is too many. So we are going to appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and hope for a full injunction against the mail order distribution of these drugs. Women's lives are at stake. Their health and well-being is at stake, and their own freedom and autonomy to make decisions for themselves. You know, when you allow mail order abortion, when you don't require these drugs to be distributed in person, what you're doing is propping up abusive partners, parents, an entire trafficking industry to continue perpetuating their abuse against women. And we're here to stand in the gap against all of that.
Learn more at adflegal.org.
Thank you, Sarah. You can hear the entire feature and all of our Family Life original news features at Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and FamilyLife.org. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
The smallest creature in the Bible may be one of its best financial teachers. Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. In Proverbs 6, Solomon says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. The ant has no commander or overseer, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest." The ant doesn't rely on luck or sudden windfalls. It simply gathers a little at a time, preparing today for what tomorrow will require. Financial wisdom often looks just like that. Steady, consistent faithfulness over time. Saving regularly, reducing debt, and planning ahead may not feel dramatic, but they're deeply biblical habits. The lesson of the ant is simple. Wise stewardship prepares for the season that's coming, not just the one we're living in. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the Faith Fi community. Download Faith Fi, Faith and Finance in your app store or visit faithfi.com.
Thank you, Rob. Finally at 5, for many of us, it started with this.
You've got mail.
And today, when we hear that certain sound, we're just like Pavlov's dog. Sorry if I made you check your email, but it's National Email Day. Communication as we know it changed forever in 1971 when computer engineer Ray Tomlinson sent the first ever email, a test to see if he could get two computers to exchange a message. Yeah, they can, to the tune of over 320 billion messages now sent every day. It was Tomlinson who came up with using the @ symbol to separate the username from the computer name. In 1978 came the first spam email, a blast sent to 400 users to advertise a new computer. On average, we check our email about 15 times a day. The average office worker gets over 120 messages a day. And by the way, the first ever email sent was just the top row of the keyboard, QWERTY UIOP. Decades later, a lot of modern emails don't make much more sense than that. And that's the world we live in for Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.